Vulture on the field.
What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to The Breakdown. This is the series where I analyze subscriber gameplay to help you improve. In today's episode, we're going to be analyzing a tactical team deathmatch gameplay on the map Throwback from Casper 8911. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so as always, let's have a look at the class that he decided to use. For his class, we got the R3K Counterbalance with an Elo Sight, Quick Draw, Stock, and Fusion Mag. For perk 1, we've got Blind Eye as well as Ghosts, and for perk 3, we've got Hardwired. That's the whole class there, and overall, this isn't really a class that I would normally use, but I can't really find anything inherently wrong with this class. Now, most of the time, I wouldn't recommend running Blind Eye all the time. I feel like that's kind of a waste because you're essentially assuming the enemy is at some point going to call a kill streak in against you. But especially recently in this game, Striker's micro turret has been popping up all over the place, and Blind Eye counters this perfectly. So this is why I would say there's absolutely no problem with running Blind Eye all the time on this sort of a class. I personally wouldn't do it so much, but I can see why people would want to. So hopping right into the gameplay here, his opening route is something that I'm not a huge fan of. At least he does have the right tool for the job, like having the R3K in this situation is pretty solid. But normally I would avoid something like this window off an opening route, simply because it's exactly where everyone expects you to be. Having said that, once you are in this position, I feel like he could have optimized this a little bit. Instead of standing up here, why not crouch? You still get the same line of sight to all the areas that you need to get a line of sight on, and you do cut your silhouette down for enemies. Also, when you're pre-aiming at this sort of range, especially with the R3K where it really matters to hit your first shot, you want to make sure your first shot is on target. Make sure you're popping in and out of aiming down sight. This resets the timer on your idle sway and will allow you to be a lot more accurate. Now, he actually does this later in the gameplay, so he does know this, but it is definitely something that I picked up on when I watched this the first time through. Now, as we're going through the gameplay, just a few general notes. First off, his ability to snap on a target really quickly is quite solid, as you can see here. He's got great reaction time, and that's excellent, especially with the R3K. That can make you very, very deadly. One thing I will point out is his general map awareness maybe needs a little bit of work. In this situation right here, he cleared through the enemy spawn, and that was great, but if you look at the minimap and you see the positioning of his teammates, take a good guess where the immediate threat is to him right now. For me at least, I'd be looking at this thinking there's no teammates on my right hand side and I haven't checked that area yet. I've cleared out their spawn, so I know that's generally safe, and also the other side of the map is where all my teammates are, so I'm still on the enemy's sort of half of the map. So I would be checking to the right hand side here. He missed that little danger zone, and a quick check over there could have potentially saved his life. Skipping ahead just a little bit here, this is a really bad habit that a lot of people need to break, and that is firing an unsilenced gun at an enemy, not getting the kill on him, like he makes it back to cover, and then immediately chasing after him. In this sort of scenario, if you do take that shot and he does get around cover, you've got a couple decent options. First off, find cover yourself, and then wait till he pops out and then you make the move on him. Or second, just get out of that situation. Once you let them get behind cover like that, they now know exactly where you are, and they have time to gather their thoughts and make a plan of attack. You don't want to get caught out in the open sprinting at them, and you also don't want to get caught just standing there doing nothing. Skipping ahead to the next thing we're going to be talking about, this is centering, and this is such a common thing. I see it with so many players, so it's not really a big deal, but it is something that can be worked on, and in the case of Casper, I feel like it will significantly help his game. Basically, for those that don't know what centering is, it just means as you're moving around the map, always keep your sights up and in areas where you expect enemies to be. You'll notice Casper, as he moves around the map, he's always aiming a little bit on the low side, and oftentimes he's not 100% perfectly centered where enemies could potentially be coming from. He's far from the worst I've ever seen at centering, but I feel like he could use a little bit of improvement in this area. Getting into the next thing, this is something I mentioned at the beginning of the gameplay, but it's a great example of how effective this can be. Watch his sights as he does this. You see it's just laser accurate. All it takes is that split second to come out of aiming down sight and then aim down sight again, and it keeps you laser accurate on that position where you expect enemies to be. Skipping ahead a little bit more, I just noticed in this situation I was kind of cringing just a little bit because he has the stock attachment equipped, but he runs around this corner into the open where you're almost definitely going to run into an enemy at some point around this corner. You're in the middle of the map, there's tons of different areas to check for, and instead of pre-aiming and strafing around that corner taking advantage of the stock attachment, he comes around and he snaps on a target. Now, I'm very impressed at how he was able to snap on that first target very, very effectively, but pre-aiming and strafing would have been the right move in that scenario. So one last thing I wanted to mention with this gameplay is his use of phase shift here. When you're using phase shift and you're using it aggressively, make sure you get your timing right. Think about how far you're going to be able to travel in the amount of time that phase shift is activated and where exactly you're going to end up when you come out of that dimension. A little bit more patience in popping it would have gone a long way in this scenario because he could have made it right in behind that enemy that just killed him. So there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode of The Breakdown. If you have a raw, unedited, HD gameplay that you'd like to submit for this series, all you have to do is send a link to that video to the email address in the description below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.